status quo budget for the coming year to continue supporting the arts in Davidson County. Metro Arts is Nashville's Office of Arts and Culture, which means we support the artists and organizations who make Nashville a cultural city. We've always known that the arts are important to Music City, the Athens of the South, but thanks to an Americans for the Arts study in 2017, we can put a dollar amount on that impact. From the AEP 5 study, we know that the nonprofit arts and culture industry generates $429.3 million in annual economic activity in Davidson County, supports 14,277 full-time equivalent jobs, and generates $51.1 million in local and state government revenues. Metro Arts has three primary areas of focus, and those are grant making to those cultural institutions that make such a big impact, partnerships with community organizations and community programs, and then public art. I'll talk briefly about how we work in these areas to expand access to the arts, cultivate equity, and support a creative workforce. We believe every Nashvilleian should have access to a creative life, and here's how we work to expand that access. The majority of our operating budget, $2.5 million, funds grants to arts nonprofits. Last fiscal year, our grants funded 537 project sites, supported 47 nonprofits' work, helped pay 4,710 artists. 100% of Metro Council districts had grant-funded projects and/or public art. Nearly 76,000 arts-based student interactions were funded, and that includes projects at almost every single Metro Nashville public school, which is more than 150 M&PS sites. We believe all ages should have access to the arts. In addition to those students, nearly 240,000 seniors interacted with the arts in programs funded by Metro Arts grants. And in the last year, we expanded Nashville's public art collection by 79%, while bringing the number of local artists to 72% of Nashville's public art collection. And this expansion was primarily through large-scale artworks in partnerships with other Metro agencies like Herb Williams' Sky Lake, with Metro Parks at Smith Springs Community Center, Brandon Donahue's residency work at the Madison Community Center, and we have some upcoming public art at the Fairgrounds, the Farmers Market, and the new Donaldson Library. However, this increase is also due to the first year of Artworks program, a concerted effort to install Nashville-based artists' wall-hung artworks in Metro public buildings, and 29 of those works are here at the Metro Courthouse. Artworks is truly a win-win. Our public buildings have art, the visitors to these buildings get to experience that art, and our local artists get paid. And they get the pride of seeing their work in their city's municipal spaces. We also administer Opportunity Now job sites for arts and culture nonprofits, because part of providing access to the arts is making sure that teens know about arts-related career paths. These teens are discovering talents, learning about options for their futures, and developing 21st century work skills. In FY18, we administered 117 arts and culture summer jobs for youth and peer leaders through Opportunity Now. We hired 102 artists through Opportunity Now. And this summer, they'll work at 12 different project sites throughout the county where teens learn about different career paths in the arts. They'll learn about set production by creating props and scenery for a real Nashville children's theater production, creating and installing a collaborative mosaic public artwork in the community with Prado Studios, and experiencing every stage of the music making process, from songwriting to mixing tracks, creating an EP, and even merchandising and marketing their finished products. Our Thrive Artist Funding Program provides access to funding for emerging artists and organizations outside of the traditional grants process. Moreover, it brings art programs and activities into neighborhoods, broadening access for the community. More than 5,000 community members participated in Thrive-funded programs in FY18. We funded 83 locations of Thrive projects and events in 12 different Metro Council districts, and that includes 288 community events, performances, and exhibitions. We also believe in the arts as a tool to drive a vibrant and equitable community. Through our Racial Equity and Arts Leadership Program, we provide training and learning opportunities for arts organizations, nonprofits, and other government agencies. 53 people have completed our Real Training Program, representing 43 different Nashville organizations. Last fiscal year, 129 leaders from Nashville arts organizations, nonprofits, and government agencies attended anti-racism training sponsored by Metro Arts. Our commitment to equity extends to the way we award grants and support our grantees' development. Last fiscal year, 50% of Metro Arts grant panelists identified as people of color. Those real graduates include 26 representatives from 19 grantee organizations. And we've shifted our funding practice over the last 5 years to reflect our commitment to equitable granting. In FY13, the largest organizations with budgets over $1 million received 75% of our available funding. And in contrast, of the $2.5 million that we grant out, more than $750,000 went to small and mid-sized organizations. And that's 185% more funding than was allocated to those organizations in FY13. So the $2.5 million is 65% of our total budget. And we acknowledge through our grants program, which is restricted to funding 501c3 organizations, it couldn't and shouldn't be our only tool to increase resources and capital for the arts and culture sector if we want to support a fuller spectrum of artists and artistic expressions, which is why we developed Thrive, Opportunity Now, and Restorative Justice in the Arts to meet needs that were not being served, ultimately connecting more Nashvillians to more creative experiences across the city. Our Restorative Justice in the Arts program in partnership with Juvenile Court is in its 3rd year. I know you all have heard from Judge Calloway. The evidence overwhelmingly supports the fact that most children who are court involved or deemed at risk are in a phase of life that they can and will overcome and outgrow if given positive direction and focus. We believe the arts have the power to provide that positive direction. We know the arts help children process trauma and make positive life choices. Through this program, we pay artists to conduct trauma-informed arts interventions. Last fiscal year, this program saw 424 youth served through a program that costs the same as the amount to prosecute and incarcerate one child for 1 year. More than 87% of those children self-identified as people of color. We hired 87 artists to teach court-involved youth about theater, visual arts, 3D printing of instruments, songwriting, and music production. This partnership reaches children at their most vulnerable, and it gives them positive redirection, letting them see what they're capable of and discover new talents and passions. Art can also be used as a tool to examine equity and convene community conversations around it. Last year, 755 Nashvillians participated in our inaugural temporary public art exhibition, Build Better Tables. The 9 art projects in this exhibition examined issues like gentrification, infant mortality, income inequality, housing, and foodways. Build Better Tables garnered the public's and the media's attention locally and nationally in the Washington Post, Food and Wine, GQ, and Yes Magazine. And just last week, we found out that Build Better Tables was selected as one of the best public art projects in the country by Americans for the Arts. In addition to our support of arts organizations, we supported more than 4,700 arts jobs, administered 117 jobs for teens, and 102 artists through Opportunity Now. We paid 125 artists through Thrive. And we've strengthened the representation of local artists in our public art collection. Again, 72% of that collection is from local artists, demonstrating our investment in the community. And more than 24 local artists have completed our in-depth Learning Lab Artist Development Program, named one of the top public art projects in the country, again by Americans for the Arts. And now those artists are equipped with deeper civic, public, social, and placemaking skills, resulting in 5 artists serving in 4 residencies with Metro and community partners this year, which includes artists at Public Health and Social Services. We appreciate the opportunity to come before you, and we appreciate your support to continue expanding Nashville's access to arts and culture, to fostering equity through the arts, and to strengthening the city's creative workforce. And now we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Director. Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all so much for being here and for all the amazing ways you're putting art in things I never would have thought to put art into. That's exciting. And thank you for your support in the restoration of the Dragon. That was an amazing thing to have happen. So the question that you and I have been talking about for several years now, Director Vinson, is maintenance of the collection that goes beyond just your department, but y'all have the most expertise in looking at what other departments have. Can you kind of give me an update on where we are in that, and if there's any budget money here or needs to be to keep that process moving along? I know you've gotten as far as an inventory, and where are we now?
Right, so we have the inventory, and so what we decided to do next is do an RFQ that is currently with procurement to get a conservator on board. So that would be a Metro-wide contract. We'd be able to get a skilled conservator in to assess those artworks, because we just did sort of a preliminary assessment of what we think it might cost to restore some of these. So that's our first step, which doesn't really cost us any additional money right now. And then we would, through our percent fund, pay for that conservator to do this assessment, hopefully within this next fiscal year. And then once we have that, we can kind of have a game plan on, do we need staff to manage this? Do we need more money to, we will need more money if we are going to restore these artworks, or are we going to decide, we just don't, that's not a priority. So those are the next steps in the next fiscal year.
Thank you. And then I guess just to, I mean, I think restore is one important piece of it, like the Dragon, and then maintain, so we don't have to do the big restoration project would be the other part. Would that come under this umbrella, or is that covered somewhere else, or?
We have typically come for 4% requests for, a smaller amount to maintain our percent collection. I think through this process with a conservator, we could determine, what are high priority artworks that need, a huge amount of money for restoration, and which are those that just need to be cleaned or just need to be looked at on a more, just regular basis. And that would maybe be a lower cost option to get a maintenance plan in place.
Gotcha.
And start working on those.
And that could possibly come through the 4% for the smaller stuff?
Yes.
Okay, great. I appreciate y'all continuing to move on that and support you however I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Allen. Councilwoman Van Rees.
Yes, hello. First, I want to acknowledge the folks in the audience as part of the Arts Commission, the Arts Coalition. If you work in the arts, could you please stand up? Right. Thank you guys for what you do every day to make this city. I have a question about the grant that was given in regard to the study for Madison and some of the Madison development. I know sometimes those NEA grants can have windows or expiration dates. Can you give me an update on that and let me know kind of what the plans are there as this relates to this year's budget?
So when I moved into this position, of course, we had an open position in public art, which Van Meyer-Valley is now our public art manager, and then that left another open position. So we've been kind of in a mode of trying to get fully staffed. And I think once we are able to do that, which we just hired someone, we are going to look back at that grant because it needs some focused attention. And we do have a window of time we still have open for NEA. And we were also kind of waiting on some of the projects that are happening there just to make sure we understand like what are the best opportunities for public art in that space. And it seemed like there were still some moving parts, so we definitely want to get that kicked back off in this summer.
Fantastic. Thank you for that update. I also understand that Madison has its first mural that was painted by a private organization there on Gallatin Pike, and so there you go. But the time that was spent, the effort that was spent to provide a tool for folks as to the best way to do murals, how to make sure that artists were properly compensated, what part of your budget did that come from, and are there other projects like that that are anticipated in the next year?
Sure. That came from a recommendation in our public art plan that we adopted a couple of years ago, and I was able to use the contract we had through our public art consultant. We had a little bit of space on that because we hadn't spent the full amount for the plan. So we were able to contract with them, and they developed the Artful Wall, which is a mural making guide to Nashville, and then also Developer's Guide to Public Art, which are both on our website in PDF format. We don't have any plans for additional projects like that this year, but certainly if the need came, and we were, because those came from questions we were getting from the community. So if one came up, or if we kept getting questions about something, I think that's definitely something we'd look at.
That's fantastic, and I encourage you to make sure that those PDFs don't just die on the vine. I think that there's a number of different, particularly in working with the Nashville Area Chamber and all the area chambers that the city supports, to make sure that those businesses know that those assets are there. I know that you can rely on your board member to help you with that. So please let me know if there's anything you need as always, but thank you for what you do every day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Van Rees. Anyone else seeking recognition? Okay, thank you so much, Director Vincent, to you and your team for everything that you do for this great city. That concludes your budget hearing. If we can have general services and fleet management, you can begin making your way down. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.